Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I'm going to be doing a review on Tyler Perry's Zatima Season 4, Episode number 11. It is titled Protect and Serve, so let's just get into it. First of all, you guys, thank you again for the grace that you guys gave me last week with my family and things. I'm back home, so hopefully everything should be back on track. But let's just get into this. This was a good episode. I was, really excited, of course, like everybody else, for Zatima to come back. So the episode picks up where we left off on Season 4, Episode 10, where, remember, Fatima and Zach had got into it at the hospital because he was like, I feel like you putting the baby's life at risk. And she was like, how can you say that to me? And he was like, because that's how I feel. And she was like, you know what? Instead of taking me to my job, just take me to the car. I'll drive myself. And he was like, I ain't doing that. And she was like, basically do what I said. So this episode is picking up with her pulling into the yard, into her driveway. And, she's getting out. She sees Deja, of course. And Deja is being Deja. She's like, hey. And she's like, hey, Deja. And she was like, Deja started trying to chit chat and stuff. And she was like, Fatima, excuse me. Basically, kind of cuts her off and was like, thank you. Because she was like, I'm not in the mood. Fatima was like, I'm not in the mood today. And she's like, dang, you ain't never in the mood. And she was like, anyway, Fatima goes, I just want to thank you about the stuff with Zach, because remember that morning she was trying to keep Deja from saying that, Leslie had showed up the night before. And so she was like, what you talking about? And Deja, end up kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so she's like, girl, I'll be blacking out and stuff. And so Fatima's like, anyway. And she goes, but I will keep your secret about, your new boo. Like, looks like you like them stocky and stuff like that. And Fatima like, what you talking about? She was like, your new dude. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She was like, your side piece. She was like, Deja, I ain't got no side piece. She was like, but you like them husky. And so Fatima basically is like, girl, like, bye, I'm done with you. So she goes into the house and when she walks in, she sees this man sitting on her couch, and she pulls her gun out, and she's just like, what is you doing in my house? And he ends up telling her that he's the bodyguard. Now, remember, Zach had already told Fatima once before in Season 4, Episode number 1, that he was going to get her a bodyguard. And she's like, Zach, I don't want no bodyguard. And then when this stuff with when he found out about this stuff with Leslie, he was like, I'm telling you, like, we got to do something. And so he ended up getting her a bodyguard. And so she walks in and she sees him. And he's like, I'm the bodyguard. And she's like, I'm going to kill him, Zach. And she's like, sir. And so he's like, I'm here, to keep you safe, you and the baby. And so she was just like, just close the door. Cause she like irritated, cause she really didn't want she really didn't want a bodyguard. Remember, she was already kind of telling Zach she didn't need one. And so he was like, well, I'm just here to keep you safe. And so he was like, let me close the door and make sure nobody followed you. She was like, I wasn't followed. So, they chit-chatting and stuff. And so basically he's, just kind of checking in with her. And she's just kind of trying to see how everything is mapped out and stuff. Like, she eventually she's like walking through the house, and she's like just trying to get the lay of the land, like how this work, like what's your shift and stuff like that. And he's like, my shift is basically wherever you are. If Mr. Taylor isn't there, then I'm there, and it's from when he tells me that I'm off to and start, basically. So in other words, he's saying that he don't really got no specific shift. It's just when she not with Zach, he gonna be with her. So it's one of the two. And so she was just like, okay, I ain't got time for this. So let me just finish Fatima really quick at the house. So she eventually calls Angela, and she's like, hey, what you doing? And she's like, no, let me say Zach calls. Zach calls and tells her that he's not going to be home for, right away. And so she's like, why? Like, we supposed to be spending time with each other. And he was like, I know, babe, but I got to go check on Connie. And she's like, are you serious? Like, I just got out the hospital. And he was like, I know, but something is up, and I just need to go check and see if she all right. And so Tim was like, you know what? All right, bye. And he was like, asking her, you still mad about, still mad. And so she was like, I'm not mad about the bodyguard. And he was like, cool, that's, we not really gonna talk about that too much, but all right. So anyway, he leaves and he goes and checks on Connie. When she gets off the phone with Zach, she calls Angela and is like, hey, Angela, what you doing? She was like, I'm not doing nothing. She was like, you want to come over, for dinner? Like, I need to catch up. Zach ain't about to be here. And so Angela's like, okay, cool. So Angela gets to the house. And the bodyguard, whose name is Charles, she's like, can you get the door? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And so he's getting the door in. He's like, Miss Angela, when he answers the door, and she's like, yeah. He's like, all right. And so he goes, I got to pat you down. And so she was like, Fatima comes up. She's like, this is what I want to talk to you about. And so she was like, what's going on? She was like, this is the bodyguard Zach got me. And so she was like, Angela is like fully like attracted to dude. She's like, okay, bodyguard. And, she all bending over so he could, pat her down. And I think at one point she even pushed his hand down again or something like, you ain't finished. Keep, doing it, because she flirting with him like hard, right? Like she is coming on super hard. And so eventually Fatima's like, okay, that's enough. Like, and she's like seeing that Angela is attracted to old boy. And so Angela making, little advances at him and stuff. And so he's telling Angela, I'm on duty. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so Fatima and Angela go and sit down at the table and stuff. And so she's like, what's going on, girl? She was like, yeah, she was like, well, they kind of start talking about why Zach wasn't home. And so she's like, he called and said that he had to go and check on, he had to go home and check on, not home, but he had to go check on Connie. And so Angela is like, what do you mean he had to go check on Connie? And so she was like, yeah, he said something was going on. And so she goes like, Fatima, you just got out the hospital. And she goes, I know. And she's like, so what's going on that he needs to go check on his ex-woman? And, of course, Fatima was like, Angela, like, real talk, I honestly didn't call you over here to like basically add, to her concerns and of why he running over there and stuff like that. She was like, I trust him and stuff. She was like, but I don't really need you. I think she used the term like sowing seeds of doubt kind of. And so Angela was like, listen, like, I ain't really trying to sow seeds of doubt, but like, we can go check on him. But like, she just basically was telling Fatima that, Zach shouldn't be, checking on Connie. He should be coming home and checking on his woman. And so she was like, Fatima was like, well, I had told him to go. I pushed him away. And so Angela said, well, just because you pushed him away, that don't mean he's supposed to go. And I ain't mad at Angela on that. Like, Angela, like as far as her being a friend, she's bringing up some valid stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that she was, meaning to be messy, but she is asking correct questions and questions I'm sure that Fatima was already thinking. And basically that's what Fatima told her, like, you supposed to be helping me keep calm and stay, rational. And basically she said, she kind of is paraphrasing that she trusts Zach, and why would he go run into Connie when he can be with Fatima? Fatima was like, she done already said in season 3 that, like, she the upgrade when you look at Connie, considering, she ain't, she's just like, I just know who I am. She know her value. She know her worth. And so she's like, okay, I know what you mean. So she was like, so they sitting down talking. And so she was like, so I'm just going to trust Zach. He only went over there because something had to be very wrong. Basically, she was like that. Other than that, he would have never like not come home to check on Fatima. And I definitely agree with that with Fatima. Like, she know that Zach is very protective over her and this baby. And so, true enough, when you start bringing like reason into it, it's if he thought that, knowing that Fatima just got out the hospital, it got to be something bad, because remember, at this point, she doesn't know what's going on. For those who've seen the episode, I'll get to Zach when I get to Zach. So let's just end it there for now with Fatima and Angela. Now let's pick up with Zach. Zach is at his office when the episode picks up, and he's getting ready to, pack up his bag so he can go home. And he gets a phone call from Connie, who, remember last episode, her house had burned down, so she was outside picking up stuff and going through her belongings and things like that. And so she called Zach, and talking to Zach was like, hey, what's up with, she was like, he was like, I ain't heard from you in a while. And she was like, but you sounding weird. And so she was like, yeah, I got to talk to you, but it ain't about Jeremiah. And he was like, all right, what's up? And so she was like, she very much so, let me tell you first, Layla played the mess out of this part. She did very, very well. I am sad to see here, because I believe that they posted that she won't be back in season 5. But she did her thing with this part in this particular scene and episodes. So anyway, she tells Zach, she breaks down, and so Zach can hear it over the phone. He's like, yo, like, Connie, what's up? And she was like, Zach, I got cancer. And he's like, what? And she was like, yeah, I'm on my second treatment. And so she goes into explaining, what's going on, and, how she was on her second treatment. And so the side effects of chemo had her so tired to the point where Hakeem, her son, was cooking something, and she was, monitoring him at a certain point. And then she eventually dozed off, and the kitchen set on fire. And as a result, the house like burnt down, and so she don't have nothing. Like, and he's like, what, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, and they took my kids. And he was like, wait a minute, what? He's like, Connie, where are your kids? She was like, they took them, Zach. And he was like, okay, like, where you at? And she was like, I'm over at the the apartment building. He was like, okay, I'm coming to you now. So when Zach gets off the phone, that's when he calls Fatima, and he tells Fatima that he wasn't coming home. And that was that whole conversation that they had. So to pick up where Zach and Fatima basically and Angela are sitting at the table, and she's like, Zach will, she's telling Angela, Zach will come home to me and the baby once he checks on Connie and stuff like that, and he'll come back to loving on us and everything. And Zach happens to open the door and come in at that point. You guys excuse, I've been in 2 different climates, so my allergies are absolutely like wilding right now. So excuse the clearing of my throat and stuff like that. Anyway, so Zach comes in, and when he comes in, like, the bodyguard Charles like gets him, right, and basically he doing what he's supposed to do, right? Like he basically kind of gets Zach in like this arm kind of hold, and like, because he just busted in the house. And so he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Taylor. And so Zach was like, nah, that's cool, like, you doing your job. And he was like, but so he comes in, and so Fatima's like, he's looking at Fatima, and he's like, babe. And she was like, what's up? And he was like, he goes, I need to ask you something. And she's like, what? And he goes, can Connie stay here? And she looks at him like, what? And he was like, I know. She was like, Zach. And he was like, I know. And so as soon as he says that, Connie walks in. Like, he like, Zach did this all wrong. Let me say this first. So let's put a pin in this and talk about this through. I'm not necessarily, like, I'm not over here okay with the fact that Zach wanted Connie to come and stay in the house. I knowing her situation and everything, like, don't get me wrong. She does need a support system, and I don't mind. And obviously we saw Fatima didn't mind that, he's going to be a part of her support system, because they've been friends since they were, kids and childhood friends, and exes too, but she just doesn't have a support system. So that part, when she's in a secure relationship, so she's not tripping off that part, but staying in her house, and then the way that Zach did it, to me, was wrong. Once again, we kind of come back to the place of delivery. Like, that was a conversation that Zach should have had with her first, before, like, Connie, let me just go in and check with her and just hold on. Or he honestly probably should have just had that conversation with Fatima before he even put Connie in the car. Like, hold on, Connie, like, once he saw that the house was completely trashed and burnt down, like, she really don't got nowhere to go. Like, that should have been a conversation that he had prior to getting to the house, versus kind of saying, Connie, come stay here, and then let me go ask Fatima. Because and Fatima says it, like, he was like, can Connie stay here? And she walks in, she was like, Zach, it's a little late for you to ask me if she could stay here when you got her standing in my face. And he was like, I know. And so that, they kind of just Connie walks in, and she's like, hi, Fatima. And Fatima, like, looks like, because she just walks in, meaning, again, Zach, you wasn't really asking my permission. At this point, that's that whole, like, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, so that you don't get a no. And that's what I didn't like about Zach, his delivery and how he handled this. Like, I truly believe that should have been a conversation that he had with Fatima first. Like, don't bring her to the house, because you obviously already made the decision. But he did tell Fatima, like, the scene picks up where Zach and Fatima are in the kitchen, and say closer to like the island where they originally were at the table. So now they're sitting at the island, and he's like, you can say no. And again, she's like, Zach, you got her here now. And she's like, I can say no, but you got her here. And he was like, I know, but I'm just saying, like, she's really bad. And so that's when Fatima was like, Zach, like, what's going on? And so he tells her, like, babe, she got cancer. And Fatima's like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, and she doing really bad. She, with the treatments, they not doing good on her body. She don't have nobody else. The treatments is affecting her body to the point where, her house burnt down and they took her kids. And so Fatima's like, well, dang. And so she's like, yeah, so like, that's why I wanted her to stay here. And so Fatima eventually is like, Zach, like, that's not a problem. She got cancer. So of course she can sleep on the couch. He was like, just for the day, like, can she come? So Fatima was like, yeah. And so he goes like, and so Fatima was like, why she didn't say nothing? And he was like, she didn't want to be a burden. And so, he's telling her the same thing that Connie basically told him when they were talking, which was she didn't want to be a burden. That's why she didn't tell nobody else but Tony. And Zach was upset because he found out that, Tony knew, but he didn't say nothing. And as a result, things have gotten worse. Like, because in all honesty, I know Tony dealing with his own stuff, but don't nobody else know what Tony's doing. So at this point, it kind of looked like you just dropped the ball, because if your best friend come over and tell you that she got cancer and she don't want you to tell nobody, but she got, I think, 3 or 4 kids, and you ain't checking on her to see like, what's up? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just dropping the ball big time. So anyway, Zach, if Fatima says yes, and so she's like, okay. And he goes like, you still want to punch me? She's like, what are you talking about? He was like, over the bodyguard. And she was like, nah, it's going to be cool having him around, like the trash and everything that she had been trying to get Zach to do. She was like, the trash should be taken out. And Zach was like, that ain't what the bodyguard is for. And she was like, well, it is now. And so she starts walking off, and he even make this little comment like, Fatima, don't be waddling away from me or something. And so, but before we get to Zach and Fatima kind of catching up, walking in to finish their conversation with Angela and Connie, let's talk about Angela and Connie's conversation. While Zach and Fatima are in the kitchen discussing everything, Connie and Angela are sitting on the couch, and Angela is like putting pillowcases on the pillows for Connie, and Connie's sitting down, and she really does what a best friend should do. And she kind of tells her, like, what Fatima letting you stay here is like gangster, like that's like trust and believe, she being way nice. And so Connie was like, no, I know. And she was like, you think I want to be in this position? And so Angela was like, well, I she was just like, well, what, is it really bad? And she goes, it is really bad. And she kind of tells her like, but anything sleeping on the couch is better than being in the street. And so she leans over or something, and Angela happens to see where her port is for her cancer treatment. And so she tells Connie, she was like, oh yeah, battling cancer can be, rough. And so Connie like closes her shirt a little bit. And so she's just like, she's kind of like hiding it. And then Angela tells her, like, you ain't got to hide it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my aunt went through it. And so she starts telling her, her kind of the way that she was there for her support, her aunt. And then she tells Connie, like, my aunt went through it, and she did say that her support system was one of the reasons that she believed that she made it through it, and everything. And so Connie was like, cool. So so Angela tells Connie, like, how about this? Why don't we just call a truce until you get better? And so, so Connie was like basically, I don't need your pity and stuff. And she was like, no, I didn't say it was gonna be any like of a pity thing. She was like, and I didn't say forever, like just until you get better. She was like, because I understand that this can be a lot, and so. She was like, so just for now, until you get better, we'll call a truce. And so Connie was like, all right then. And so, they kind of call each other bees, and like, so this is another reason why I hate to see that Connie is leaving, because at this point, Fatima definitely is like letting her know that, if because Zach is your friend and he loves you, then I love the extensions of Zach. And she's been pretty much saying that to other people, and Zach as well. Like, I love who you love and that kind of stuff. And so, anyway, they're still talking, Angela and Connie, and they kind of look over at Fatima and Zach and see that they're discussing everything. And so she was like, okay, let's just go ahead and have this truce and stuff like that. And that was pretty much it. And then Zach and Fatima kind of entered the room, and Fatima comes over and she's like, Connie, you're welcome to sleep on the couch. And so Connie's like, thank you, Fatima. And she was like, you're welcome. And she was like, I want you to know that you don't got to do this by yourself. To Connie, you don't have to go through this by yourself, and you're not a burden to anybody. And so she was like, thank you. And she goes, and tomorrow, because Zach had asked Fatima, to help Connie get her kids back. And she told Zach, he was like, I know I'm asking a lot of you. And Fatima, she did. She was like, yeah, you really are. And he was like, I know, but she just down, babe. And so because Zach also understands how it is to be in the system, because remember, he grew up in and out of the foster care system. So you can tell that he was really an advocate for not wanting kids to go in the system if there's any other option and stuff like that, or to get them out as soon as they can. So he was like, can you help her? So, she said she would do what she had to do. And so Fatima actually tells Connie that, tomorrow, the first thing we'll do in the morning is see what we can do to get your kids back. And so she was like, thank you. And so Angela is kind of like, okay, look, it looks like y'all got your hands full over here. So I'm going to go ahead and take my plate and go. And so Zach was like, cool, like, Charles, you can go ahead and go too. Cause, he was like telling Fatima, like, let's just eat basically. And Fatima was like, well, I only fix enough for you and me, like for us. Like, and she was like, but we'll make it work. And he was like, all right. And so, anyway, Angela and the bodyguard Charles leave. And so, Fatima asked Connie, she's like, Connie, are you hungry? And Connie was like, I could eat. Like, girl, like, is you hungry or not? Like, I could eat. Like, if you're not hungry, don't eat. Like, but if you are, eat. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why you couldn't just say, yeah, thank you, but I could eat. Like, quit being so hard when people trying to help you. But I get it to an extent too. Like, and Connie did tell Fatima, thank you. When Fatima told her, you're not a burden, she told Fatima, thank you. It's just really hard for me because I've been on my own, basically kind of doing everything for myself. So, and I feel like there's a lot of us who can understand that kind of thing. Like, it's kind of hard to ask for help sometimes. I'm getting better at it, but I ain't there yet completely, but it takes a lot before I finally start asking for help. So her wanting to do everything on her own is a little understandable, just knowing that, but knowing that both her parents, her mom and other people in her family, not parents, but other people in the family went through cancer. I'm really not sure why she thought she was going to be able to do this without any support from anybody. It just wasn't working. So anyway, so they go get ready to go sit down to eat. And so while Fatima goes, okay, well, let me go over here and get everything situated. She goes, you guys can sit at the table. And Zach tells her, like, you're not about to get the food by yourself. Like, hold on. So he, pulls Connie's chair out and tells her to have a seat. And then he goes over to help Fatima bring the food over. And that was pretty much it for them. The next scene with them, let me just go ahead and finish Zach, Fatima, and Connie, is later on in the night. Like, you can tell they've all went to bed. They are in bed. Fatima and Zach are in bed, sleep, cuddled up, and they hear some kind of commotion downstairs, and they both pop up. And so they get ready to go downstairs because they hear like some fumbling around and stuff. And so like Zach reaches in to like get his gun or whatever, and then he's like getting ready to go downstairs. Now Zach ain't got nothing on but drawers, and so she's like, Zach, put some clothes on Connie downstairs. And he was like, dang, man. And so it was so funny because that's how women are, like, too. Like, dudes, I get it, dudes are like, the first thing they doing is they going downstairs, drawers, neck, whatever, they just trying to protect their home. And I get that, but it was so funny because we as women is like, it's somebody else in the house, put some clothes on, you know what I'm saying? And especially considering this is somebody that you used to be with. Like, I'm okay with this, but I ain't that okay, right? Like, so they go downstairs, and she was like, I'm going too. And he was like, you not going? She was like, yes, I am. So they go downstairs. While they're going downstairs, you can see them walk past, like Zach still to put the crib up, and they slowly go downstairs. Zach is in the front, of course, and he has Fatima's hand as they're walking downstairs. When they finally get downstairs, they see that all the commotion and everything was Connie. She got sick, remember she's in her second round of chemo, so her body is having these reactions. So she had vomited on the floor and was trying to get up and looked like she lost her balance, and she couldn't really get up, and she just kind of was just in a vomiting fit, unfortunately, so Zach, he's like, oh man. And so they get her, he's like, he raises her up and kind of scoots her to over to like a counter so that she can get some stability, like put her back up against it. And he runs upstairs and he gets a towel to clean everything up, and Fatima is sitting there. Fatima grabs a towel and wipes Connie's face. And so they're just talking to Connie, and she's just like, I can't do this, I'm not gonna make it, and stuff like that. And Fatima was like, do not say that, you know what I mean, like, Connie. And so Connie just breaks down crying, and she was just start talking about like, no, this is really progressing. And that's when she starts saying again, like, her mom had it, like, this is really bad. And Fatima's just being really consoling, like, just breathe, calm down, like, try to, it's okay, it's okay. And she's just telling her it's okay. And Connie is like full, just, I feel like, she's just in her mind, she's just like this thing, knowing that her mom, and then I think she said her aunt had it, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's just already seeing, it was her grandmother. Like, she's just kind of already seeing the end. And so, Fatima's like, do not say that. Don't think about that. Like, you got us. Like, you are not doing this by yourself. And so Connie is just like, it hurts. And she's just breaking down. When I tell you, Layla did her thing with this part. Like, I am so... I hate to see her leave because she's a good actress to me. I like her too. You know what I'm saying? I like her character. I wasn't feeling her earlier on, the disrespect that she was doing, but I do see the redeeming qualities that they could do with her story. And I'm really kind of sad that they chose her character not to return. And so that was it for them. So let's go on and move to Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is the other part of the episode that happened. And so Jeremiah at a certain point goes and he walks back into the rehabilitation center that Zach had took him to. Was that in season 3? Was that season 3? In season 3, he took him to the rehabilitation center. Remember, he paid that $5,000 and thought he was going to get his money back. And it just didn't go down that way, because Jeremiah ended up leaving. So Jeremiah went back to there, and he actually runs into the same doctor, and he's like, hey, you remember me? And she's like, I do. And he was like, I'm ready to get clean. And so she was like, that's great. He was like, yeah, my brother paid for me to be in the program. And so she tells him, like, that's not really how it goes. You don't really get to go and come as you please. You don't get to hold it until you're ready or anything. And so he was like, okay. And he was like, but I'm not going to make it, and I'm ready to get clean. And she was like, I understand that. That's just not how it goes. So he goes, all right. And so he walks off, and he's walking slowly, and he stops, and she kind of catches up with him, and she's like, Mr. Matthews or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm leaving. I was just taking a breath. And she was like, no, listen, I think we might have a way to get you into a different program, kind of a thing, but it's going to be rough. And he was like, I'm just ready. And so she was like, all right, let's go get you signed up. And so she eventually gets him checked in and everything. The next scene with them picks up where Jeremiah is in the bed. He's in a bed, and he is going through like major withdrawals and everything. So the doctor comes in, and she's checking on him, and she's just saying, like, you're going to need some medication to help you deal with the fits that you're having, because you're already starting with the shakes and it's going to get worse. And he's like, I don't want to. And she's like, no, this is not a narcotic. This is going to help, like, the side effects. It's not going to, like, make you high or anything like that. And so he was like, all right. So she ends up giving it to him. And then he goes, she says, like, it's going to get bad, but I need you to fight, basically. And he was like, all right. He was like, you my support system. She was like, not just me. You got a lot of people in your corner, And so he was like, all right. So he was like, can I pray with, will you pray with me, basically? And so he grabs her hand, and he starts, and he just says a simple prayer. And I love this part of the writing, because I think sometimes people think that prayer has to be this long, like, deep thing. And there are times when it is, of course, but there are other times when things are urgent. And he just said a simple prayer, God help. And I loved it. I loved that part of this. It was just the simplicity, but the passion and the desire behind it. Like, to find out, I think Amir is the other person who's not coming back, the Jeremiah character, for season 5. And it's unfortunate. I don't know the reasons why or anything. Of course, none of that was disclosed or anything like that. But honestly, I think these are one of the two of the between Layla and Amir, the Connie and Jeremiah characters. I honestly think those are one of the two stronger characters as of right now. that we're seeing the storyline with that, I would rather, I'm gonna be real honest, I would rather see them stay and then Belinda go. Like, I don't want nobody to lose their job, but that's my thing. Like, I don't, want nobody to lose their job. I'm just saying, like, I could definitely do without the Belinda character. And so, and quiet as kept, probably Nate too, you know what I mean? Like, I think they need to go get themselves together, but I understand Zach need his boys and Fatima is gonna need her girls, although I'm still hope they play it real cool with the Belinda bringing her back into the situation. So anyway, that was pretty much the end of the episode. So tell me what you guys thought about everything. I thought it was a good episode. Definitely touch some points. Like I said, I'm glad to find out that, we'll talk about that in the next episode, so I don't want to give too much off. But anyway, it was a good episode. I do see the concern and the care. Now, one thing about Zach, like, while I said I was upset that he even brought this to Fatima, like, about Connie staying there, is because, let me just say this, I honestly do think it was somewhere else Connie could have went. I understand that Zach, is trying to be a support system, but once again, what's wrong with, if she's sleeping on a couch, right? What's wrong with Tony's couch? Tony is by himself. He don't got nobody. She not an ex. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was my thing, that there were other options. I don't really have an issue with the security that, that Fatima has, because I do think Fatima is secure in her relationship with Zach. I think Zach at this point has proved that he can, he knows how to practice self-control, especially when it comes to crossing Fatima's boundary, because he know the result is she out. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about that. It's just, again, the way that he presented he presented the situation to Fatima, where he, he basically locked her into saying, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because, somebody ain't gonna say you can't stay in their house, like, with everything that's going on in you in their face, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. That's what I did not like about how Zach delivered this particular, situation to Fatima, and then asked her again. You had no intentions on really asking. This is the permission thing. I mean, the forgiveness thing. You already told her she could stay because she in here and she got her bag in her hand. So got you. So, you know what I mean? So you not asking, you telling me that she's staying, and then you asking me to forgive this, to forgive you for what you did. And so that's where that was with me. What do you guys think about that? Again, like I said, I think that she could have stayed at Tony's and it would have been the same thing. I could still help as Fatima, right? I could still help you get your kids back. We gonna still be in your support, but you just not on my couch. Because again, what difference does it make if Tony can help Tony's couch, Fatima's couch? It wasn't like they put her in a room. She was on the couch is what I'm saying. So since that's the route, since that's where we're going to put you, then there was other places that she could have went. But with that being said, I don't know if you guys caught the live between Deval, Crystal, and Courtney, who did say that, he kind of likes the fact, Courtney mentioned that he likes to piss us off as, viewers and fans of the show. And so, I'm not too mad at that to an extent, because I understand it, some of it brings us back, but I just hope he don't do the way that the season 7, 8, and 9 writers of Sisters pissed us off, to the point where I don't want to watch the show no more. Like, it's a balance between that, and I hope he maintains that heavy balance. Like, I think it's somebody who mentioned, like, what happens if Fatima, another a content creator, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, and I didn't even really listen to it. I think I read it or something like that, where it said, like, what happens if Fatima loses the baby. I honestly don't feel like they will go that far. But because that, like, so Zach losing two kids, and then Fatima losing her baby, like, you know what I mean? And then it's expecting her to, like, jump back. And I feel like that's a little extra. I do understand that he just said that he liked to piss us off. So I understand that's a possibility. I just feel like that he won't do that. He'll just ride around the baby, and we'll see. But again, I'm not too upset with the fact that he likes to, agitate his fans and stuff with the writing, because I think that's kind of part of the creativity. But again, don't piss us off, Courtney, too much to the point where we don't want to watch the show no more, because you're doing stuff that's completely, too far-fetched. And, because I almost thought this was going to be that, that way. But to an extent, I can see the Fatima, because of the fact that Connie had cancer and so much loss, that I can see the compassion of Fatima letting her stay at her house, overnight, while they get her situated the next day. That's something that's doable. That's not, I'm not too mad about that. Like I said, I think there were other options, but I get this is also a dramedy, right? So anyway, that's what I got to say about the show. You guys, let me know what you thought. Let's get into the conversation like we do down in the comments. Once again, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.